Before we get into the episode, we would like to issue a content warning.
Due to the nature of this show, we will be discussing sensitive topics, which could include murder, violence, sexual assault, domestic abuse, animal abuse, elder abuse, alcohol, drugs, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and more. Please take this into account when deciding when, where, and if to listen. Hello and welcome to Looking for a Man in His 30s, a Criminal Minds podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Sara. And today we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 7, The Fox, which first aired on November the 9th, 2005. Well, first.
Yeah, so what have you been doing this week, Sara? You've been doing a lot more than I have, it seems.
So on Wednesday last week, I had, it was supposed to be one tooth removed, but they found a little slither of one behind it. It was like a broken one from like years ago. So they technically got two for the price of one. So yeah.
Wait, you didn't have to pay for it, did you?
No, thankfully I don't have to pay.
Okay, good. For a second there, I thought you were like at a private dentist, and I was like, good God, Sara. What's happening?
It was a referral from the emergency dentist. And it was the dentist who actually said two for the price of one. But why are they so brutal when they remove teeth? Like,
I don't know.
They done me with the needles, the gigantic needles. But they're like, literally, he's like this. He's trying to pull it. Yeah, actually.
So I was sedated when they took my tooth out.
I'm jealous.
Because, like, I also don't know how I'm supposed to hold my mouth open that far for them to, like, get their, like, pliers or whatever into the thing.
Yeah.
But I have, for the listeners or viewers who don't know, I have rampant anxiety and I have autism. So I do not like going to the dentist, and in my mid-30s, I still have to be accompanied. I have been making progress. I take my Bluetooth headphones and I have them on when they're doing any work, and I can now go to the hygienist on my own.
Yay!
Yes. So I have my headphones on to block out all of the noise from the machines.
Yeah.
And I'm just listening to a podcast, and it's just like going in my ear. Like I listen to the same one each time, not the same episode, but the same podcast. It's history of the 90s, and I find that the host just has a really comforting voice, and I'm like, oh, good. And then I've got my fidget toy in my coat pocket, and I'm like playing with that while anything is being done to me from now on.
Oh, that's cool. I just suffer.
Also take your headphones in if you wanted.
I could. I
know that I'm using it because it's an autism coping method, but neurotypical people can still use it.
He's there like yanking. He's like, you're all right. I've got a tear rolling down my face. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, literally. I was asleep when they took mine, so they took the tooth, and then I was like, I'm going to be asleep, and then I just slept for the rest of the day because I'd been sedated. So all I did was I went upstairs to my nan's bed, and I just like fell asleep for like 3 or 4 hours.
Well, when they did, they numbed me, and they did warm me up. He said it might take about 3 hours to wear off. And it wore off in about an hour and a half.
Oh no!
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great.
For the past week, I've had a lovely supply of ibuprofen and paracetamol.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you try cocodamol? You can get that over the counter.
It doesn't really work for me for some reason.
No.
I don't know why.
I found that when I had that nerve pain last year. I've still got the nerve pain, but obviously I'm on tablets that the doctor has actually prescribed now. But I was like, cocodamol doesn't seem to be doing anything. And do you remember when I went to the urgent care describing like what I now know are textbook symptoms of a migraine? And she was like, take this codeine and go away. And I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I'm saying there's pressure above and below my eye, and you're like, take some codeine.
Yeah, have some drugs.
I'm just going to say I don't think that's the best way to, like, if someone's saying they've got pressure above and below their eye, like,
Yeah.
Why are you not, like, looking into that? Why is that just something that you're going to brush off for 3 more days until someone ends up at the hospital for a different reason and is, like, fully looking at the floor, has a baseball cap pulled down over their head, and then a doctor is like, are you okay? Yeah, I can't look at the lights. Yeah, can you just tell me about my granddad's chest x-ray? Yeah. And he's like, the doctor's like, yeah, you need to go to urgent care. I think you're having a migraine. And I was like, oh, they said there was nothing wrong with me on Thursday in urgent care. And he's like, and then I'm like, yeah, and I lost sight in my right eye. And he's like, sorry, what? No, you need to go to urgent care. Why are you just sitting here, like, barely able to see out of one eye?
Did you just want to suffer?
No, I'd been to urgent care on the Thursday and they said there was nothing wrong with me.
Oh.
I'm not a doctor. I was like, oh, maybe there is just nothing wrong with me.
Just sat there.
Yeah, like I felt like insane because I was like, I can't look up at like the lights in the hospital. I can't look at a screen, and he's there trying to show me my granddad's chest X-ray, which is obviously on a screen. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think I actually need to see the chest X-ray. I'm gonna believe you. I don't know what a normal chest X-ray should be. You know, I'm not the diagnosing person here. I can't be like, yeah, that looks a bit worrying in the upper left quadrant. They'll be like, sorry, what? They'll be like, no, that's a healthy tissue. And I'll be like, oh, shit.
I think I'm watching enough medical shows to kind of know my way around one, maybe.
I think I do not. I think I watch a few medical shows, but I definitely don't know anything like how to do CPR or put someone in the recovery position.
Oh, I did that. I learned that on my last job. A training session. It was fun.
As we said in the last show, pay doctors more.
Yeah.
I'm not going there with my basic knowledge of medical things from watching Station 19. I'm not going to be like, well, don't worry, I think I'm fine. Google, how do you set a broken arm? Anyway, so we veered off the subject already. I've taken us on a very long detour. Back to you, Sarah. You were talking, weren't you?
I was. So, finishing off from the dentist story, I now have face ache. Mostly controlled by meds. Now and again, I'll have a sharp pain, but not major. And I don't have dry sockets. That's good. Because I was worried about that.
Sorry, oh, dry socket. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have that, so I'm good. So it's healing. I've had a nose. It's fine. But other than that, this week I was casually getting run over by an almost 1-year-old in a baby walker.
Oh, you're talking about your nephew. I felt like you'd been like.
No,
I was like, wait, sorry, that should have been something you sent to me in a message. This isn't something you saved for the podcast. I nearly got hit by a car.
No, I nearly got hit by a child in a baby walker.
Oh, he can walk. That's cute.
Because he's figured out, well, he's been, for the last couple of weeks, my mum bought a baby walker. So we've been trying him in it, and for the first couple of weeks, he was just casually moving a little bit. Now he runs around the house in it.
Oh, that's adorable.
The kid thinks he's Lando Norris. He flies around the house. You don't care what's in front of him. He'll hit your shins, your feet. He's been hitting the dog with it. Poor dog.
Oh no, the poor dog.
No, dog just got yeeted across the room.
That dog's traumatized.
I know.
So what have I been doing this week? I had my uncle down, which was nice. I don't really think I've done anything interesting since then. I listened to a podcast and found out that I now am very skeptical about Naomi Wolf, which I told Sarah last night because I was like, this could not possibly, I'd heard an offhand comment in a podcast, Conspiracy, she wrote, and it's hosted by Kristen Kunga. Basically, they were like, yeah, this reminds me of Naomi Wolf. And I was like, the woman that wrote the beauty myth. Like, what's wrong with her? What? I was like, oh, I better Google this. I'm sure it's not her. And it turns out she's been spreading COVID misinformation and misinformation about the beheadings by ISIS and misinformation about the Western African Ebola outbreak. And it's like, that is a lot of serious things to be kind of a conspiracy person about. So yeah, if I've ruined anyone's day by telling them that about Naomi Wolf, sorry. I'm trying to think if I've done anything else interesting, but I seriously don't think I have this week. All I've been doing is like life admin and, you know, trying to hang up the artwork in my room. By the way, do you like it?
It looks pretty.
Thank you.
Like,
I was redoing my office and I've been doing it over the past few weeks, so I think it's now done, which is good. Excellent. So as I don't have anything else interesting to say, shall we move straight on to the episode?
Yes, we shall.
Okay, so Sarah, wheels up.
Wheels up. So this week's episode opens to the camera's perspective, tracking through some bushes in a garden before turning and focusing on a home. It looks like the point of view of the onslaught, and in the background there's like ominous music playing, and a child's voice is heard shouting, "No, no, no." So at first, like you're thinking something's going down, but then the camera shot moves inside the house, and you see the child shouting for his mom, saying, "Don't let him get me." So you still think that something's going on, whilst he's running down the hallway until he sees Dad chasing him, making monkey impression noise. So the young boy runs into the living room where his mum and sister are, and he knocks over a tub of paint, ruining his sister's painting. So obviously she's upset. Mum's comforting the daughter, and she's scolding the father and son. And then she reminds her husband that they have a 12-hour car ride the following day, and it's revealed they're going to Disney World for a vacation.
I would love to be in Disney World for a vacation right now. But also, why are Americans driving everywhere? Like 12 hours in the car is too much.
Yeah, too much. Like anything, like we go on holiday every summer, and where we go, it's like 3-hour car ride.
Yeah, no, it's just too long. Get the train. You don't want to be driving. Like
I once did an 8-hour coach. That no, never again. Yeah.
That was after coming back to see me, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because before that I'd been to Plymouth on a coach, and that was really long. And it cost me £1.50, so I was cheap.
Yeah, it did. I remember that. The days when Megabus would do a deal.
I know. And I only went down there for a concert, so I was only there like 2 days. My cousin was living down there at the time.
Not bad for just £1.50.
So this is our introduction to the Crawford family. So you've got the mum, Alison, the dad, Chris, the son, Sam, and the daughter, Emily. So the children are sent by the dad to find Ben, who we find out later is the dog. So they go outside and shout him in. But then the camera tracks to a dog in the patio, like behind the bushes, eating something. I couldn't quite tell what. Could you tell what he was eating?
No, I couldn't see. All I could see was the dog, and it was too dark.
So after shouting, Ben doesn't appear, so the children head back inside. But then suddenly the dog comes running through and into the house through the dog door. And from what I could tell, he doesn't have like a collar on.
No, perhaps not. I didn't see, but I think that comes up later, doesn't it?
It does.
So someone might have taken the collar from the dog.
So the dad, Chris, he's looking outside the window as though he's heard something like checking around that nobody's about. And then he gets back to what he's doing. In the next scene, we see Chris and Sam lay on a bed. Alison comes into the room carrying Emily. It appears that she's about to take the children to bed. So she looks over and Sam looks like he's asleep. And she doesn't want to disturb him, so she tells Chris to let him sleep in their beds for the night. And she heads out of the room to take Emily to bed. But once she's left, Sam opens his eyes and tells his dad he loves him. Chris says he loves him back as well. The camera then pans outside and a shadowy figure is seen. Like half off camera, you can see half of the figure. And he's looking like directly at the house. Next scene, we're in the next morning, and a man's voice is heard on the radio as the camera pans around the room. and focuses on the parents in bed. Alison wakes up and caresses what she assumes is her husband. So she gets up out of bed. She thinks Sam's still in the room, so she calls his name. As she turns around, she's horrified to see that Chris is bound and gagged in a corner, with a terrified look in his eyes. As the camera spins back round, the bed sheets suddenly move and Alison gasps. The sheets fly up, indicating that someone else is in the bed with them, and then the screen cuts to black.
I want to know how she slept through that. Like,
yeah.
You're a mum, you're lying in bed next to your husband and your son. Like, so basically, some guy has broken in, grabbed your husband, and he has somehow not made enough noise or made enough movement during the time that he is being strapped to a chair.
Yeah.
I'm just confused. Like, even if like the guy immediately had a gun and a gag, like I think you'd still manage to make enough movement that a second person would
or at
wake
least
up.
a tiny bit of noise.
Yeah.
Which, unless she was like drugged or something.
Yeah, but we don't see that. Maybe she's just got really good sleeping tablets.
Yeah, I'll listen.
Yeah. Hey, share.
So the next scene opens on a bird's eye view of the BAU headquarters in Quantico, Virginia. Gideon gives his opening quote as the camera pans around, which is Dr. Thomas Fuller wrote, "With foxes, we must play the fox." And it's heard as the camera focuses on a photo of the Crawford family. Gideon is then seen putting photos of the crime scene on a board. The camera jumps from photo to photo, highlighting a gruesome scene. Elle then enters the room and focuses on the board. She sees a photo of Alice on a mortuary slab. As it's shown, Gideon states that the family were butchered in their home. Elle questions whether it was a murder-suicide. Gideon states that's what they must find out. And cue open. The next scene opens on a shot of a newborn baby boy. The camera pans back to Hotch holding the baby, standing next to his wife. The son has finally been born.
Jack is here.
Yay! And JJ and Garcia are fawning over the little guy because
Mm-hmm.
But Reed's not as infatuated.
Yeah, I don't blame him. That's also how I feel when people show me their babies. I'm like, oh, cool.
And the best conversation I found was JJ saying, "Oh, he's so gorgeous," and Reed says, "If you find baldness and wrinkles attractive," was a cute comment.
Yeah, it was.
And then the best one when Garcia again, "Don't you want one of these?" And Morgan says, "I'll stick to practicing." Not dirty boy. So Elle appears and congratulates Hotch and his wife. His wife then leaves with the baby and everyone waves him off and gets back to doing what they were doing. Elle hands Hotch a file and they head to join the team. Gideon says the Crawfords were murdered 3 days ago and found in the basement of their house. TV journalists had reported that it was a murder-suicide, that the father had stabbed the rest of the family before shooting himself. And the Maryland State Police had also come to that conclusion. JJ says that the gun was found next to the father, who had gunpowder residue on his right hand, but she's not convinced that he was the shooter. She reveals then that another family, the Millers, were also found murdered the month before. And the mother, Reese Miller, along with her new husband and 2 children from a previous marriage, they were also found in the basement. Coincidentally, both families had suitcases packed for a vacation. And the bodies were found 5 days after the vacation was supposed to have started. However, the coroner determined that in both cases, they'd only been dead for 24 hours.
No, absolutely not. That's awful. Like being kept alive by a psychopath for 4 days, like that kind of torture.
Your mind just all over the place, and then towards the end, I assumed that they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Terrifying. So, as both families were found in their basements, Gideon concluded that it indicates a level of organisation. Morgan said, with a quick but disorganised application of overpowering force. Reed says that if they aren't murder-suicides, someone's going through the trouble of making it look like they are. They do have one suspect for the Miller family's murder, which is Eric Miller, who is the bio dad of the children. Arlington PD had put a bolo out for him after the Millers were found, as his ex-wife had a restraining order against him for domestic violence. It's revealed that Reese married her new husband 1 week before the murder. As Morgan said, violent husbands believe their wife and children are property. He then suggests that it was Reese's remarriage that is what made Eric snap. JJ reveals that Virginia cops had apprehended Eric the night before when they responded to a drunken disturbance at a motel. When found, Eric had blood on his black leather jacket, blood later found out to belong to his children. However, none of his DNA had been found at the Crawford house. JJ said that Arlington PD have asked the team to interview Eric. Gideon then tells Reed to do it solo. Reed seemed very apprehensive and nervous about this.
Yeah, also, I don't get that. Why is Reed just being thrown in to talk to a suspect solo? He's not exactly the most comfortable with talking to suspects. Like, I just think that there should have been someone else in the interrogation room with him.
Yeah, I expected, like, Hotch to do it.
Yeah, like, either have Hotch in there or... Like, I'm not saying he shouldn't learn. I'm saying that I don't think he's at the point where he should be leading an interrogation.
No.
Like, this has been his job for like 6 months. He was basically a teaching assistant before this.
So there's a transition shot from crime scene photo to the Crawford's basement as Gideon and Morgan descend down the stairs. Gideon thinks that the Crawfords must have known their fate as soon as they were brought into the basement. Gideon and Morgan begin to assess the scene. A large blood pool is seen on the carpet in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
Gideon points out the locations of where the children, Sam and Emily, were found. Morgan looks for a pile of crime scene photos in his hand and then matches the images to locations in the actual room. Gideon questions how the unstuck did it. Morgan suggests that it was with a gun to force him down the stairs before he stabbed him. Then Gideon asks, but who first? Morgan thinks the father was first because he's the strongest one, then followed by the mother. But then Gideon asks how the unsub would then stop the kids from running away if they've seen the parents being attacked. Morgan reckons possibly with restraints, but Gideon points out that no restraints were found on the victims and they have no ligature marks. Gideon then suggests going upstairs to see how the family lived to get a better understanding of them. Hotch and Ella going through reports as a tape of the medical examiner can be heard talking about the Crawfords, their injuries and the cause of death.
Bit where the coroner's going over how they died, it really got to me. I was like, oh God. Like Sam Crawford, age 5, multiple stab wounds.
Yeah.
Cause of death, lacerations of the left ventricle. Alison Crawford, 32, multiple stab wounds. Cause of death, exsanguination.
Yeah.
Emily Crawford, age 8, multiple stab wounds, cause of death, exsanguination. And Christopher Crawford, 36, cause of death, point blank, single 9mm gunshot wound to the temporal lobe. And it's like, oh, that really got to me, especially when it was the kids, because it was like,
definitely.
But yeah, sorry, go on, Sarah.
So a photo of Chris's hand is shown, and his wedding ring is missing. You can see like an outline of where the ring was.
Yeah.
But it's not listed in his personal effects. So understandably, Hotch questions where the ring is.
Yeah, I mean, could it still be in the house? My dad takes his off to garden, so...
My mum and dad don't wear those anymore.
Oh.
I mean, mum has some rings, but the wedding rings, I can't remember whether they got damaged or they haven't worn for probably about 15 years, maybe.
My mum has to get hers resized, but because it's got a design around it, she needs to get the jeweler to be like very careful because it's also got an engraving on the inside, and so she doesn't want it to be like cut and then cut through the engraving on the inside. Yeah. So she's getting that done later this year. So
in the next scene, Reed enters the interview room. Eric is sat there in a prison jumpsuit, handcuffed, and he looks a bit menacing. Reed introduces himself, and Eric says, "You got something you want to ask me, boy?" You look me in the eye and you ask. Nervously now, Reed fumbles with a stack of files. Eric looks at him again and goes, "You're not looking at me." For some reason, I don't know how, he suddenly summons the courage and then begins talking to him directly. He's trying to ascertain whether Eric knew the Crawfords. He tells Eric that the Crawfords were killed in the exact same way that his family was. Eric seems frustrated and tries to frighten Reed by shouting. As Ellen and Hotch enter the room, Reed begins reeling off facts about Eric's family history. Eric is understandably distraught.
Mm.
Elle seems concerned and wants to stop Reed, but Hotch allows him to continue. Reed mentions that Eric's substance abuse and that the point where he's remorseful once sober. He then says that genetic factors contribute to alcohol stress situations. Eric's mother was an alcoholic who couldn't stop his father abusing him. At the age of 6, Eric was orphaned to a new family who continued the abuse. Only this time it was sexual, and this abuse continued into puberty. So
Yeah, that.
He didn't have a life, did he?
No, like, I mean, you're not set up for a good life if all you know for your childhood is abuse. So at this point, I was feeling like really sorry for Eric, and I like Elle would have been like, Reed, shut up. And I was like, oh yeah, there was domestic abuse from him to the wife and kids. Maybe we'll just maybe we'll let Reed scream at him for a bit more. But yeah, Eric didn't have a lot going for him at the start, and I very much doubt he got the sort of therapy you would need to get over childhood abuse. Or like even to
no wonder he continued the cycle.
Yeah. I don't think, because Reed goes on to be like, did you sexually abuse your kids? And I don't think he did. But you know, the kind of domestic abuse cycle, it goes on, and that's why we need to make sure that children in those situations, and even the parent or parental figure that is doing the abusing, they need some sort of therapy to be able to end the cycle now.
Exactly. So understandably at this point Eric's fuming and he threatens to rip Reed's face off.
As I would do if someone asked me if I had sexually abused my kids.
Yep. And as you mentioned, Emma, when Reed questions Eric whether he continued the cycle of abuse with his own children, and horrified Eric denies it. Eric reminds Reed that he found his children dead, and through tears he says, "My babies, my sweet babies." He then explains that he only ran from the scene because he thought that the cops would blame him, and that he can't get the image of his dead children out of his mind. He said when he found them, his son Ty was clutching a piece of paper, but unsure whether it was a drawing or a painting. He just wants to know what's on the paper. Elle remarks Reed on his interesting interrogation technique and questions what he hoped to accomplish with it. Reed says...
Well, he learned from Gideon, didn't he? That's all Gideon frickin' does. Let me just yell at an abuse victim, or let me just yell at whoever the unsub is, and we'll see if it works. Fingers crossed, guys.
So Reed says as Eric was hostile and defensive, he needed a way in, so that's how he came to figure out this technique. Reed believes that Eric did not kill his family, but did suffer a mental breakdown. Despite the divorce, Eric clearly loved his wife, and he was still wearing his wedding ring. Back at the Crawford house, Gideon points out that the yard is overgrown. The roof of the house and the car in the driveway are clearly in need of maintenance. But yet Alison's SUV is in pristine condition. Also, the kids are privately educated, and Alison drives them off into school. Morgan suggests that Alison's car and the house was a way of showing off the wealth of the other parents. Gideon notes the luxury items around the house and then points out the water damage behind the curtain.
All right, Gideon, calm down. Maybe she just had depression. I had water damage in the bay window for like a year and didn't do anything about it. Oh well, the bay window comes down, it kills me. Who cares? Be a little bit more chill. I'm a woman.
So Gideon says Alison spent money on the things that her friends could see and neglected those they couldn't. They clearly lived beyond their means, and he tells Morgan to get Garcia to check the family's financial situation. Gideon then takes a painting off the fridge and reads Emily's name aloud. The picture is of a house with the outline painted in black. He points out it's no colour, just lines and dimensions, which is very strange for a child's painting.
Yeah, if any of your nephews painted that, you would be like, I have questions.
Yeah.
What happened?
And normally there's like a load of colour and
Mostly colour, no lines whatsoever.
No. And they always draw the families.
Yeah.
Morgan inspects the hallway and confirms that no dog collar was found. Gideon thinks that Ben didn't have one, but Morgan disputes it by saying he must have had one, as he kicks the dog door and points out that the door only opens when activated by a chip in the dog's collar. If someone had tried to get in without the chip, the alarm would have been sounded. When the cops had arrived at the house initially, everything was locked up and the alarms had been set. So the dog door would have been the only way to gain entry with the chip. Morgan suggests that the unsub was a big guy and then points out that Chris was a black belt in judo. With Morgan crouching down, Gideon role plays as the unsub, pretends to be holding a gun at Morgan's head. Gideon says that Morgan, who's role playing as Chris, could have easily taken the gun, but with the kids in the same room, failure to stop the unsub would have resulted in their deaths immediately. Gideon says, "Does it matter how big I am now?" Morgan realizes he's right.
Yeah.
Gideon says that Alison would have put up one hell of a fight, whether she was bound or not. Emily and Sam would have been crying. Morgan concludes that Chris didn't kill them, and neither did Eric. And then the part that terrified me initially was Gideon suddenly begins screaming, "Help me. Help me." I was literally, I'm like, I'm staring at the screen.
Yes, absolutely wild.
But then it was overlaid with Alison's voice as well, so you kind of got what he was doing.
Yeah.
But before her voice came in, you were just like, what the hell are you doing?
Imagine you're standing in a room with someone and they just start screaming out of nowhere. I mean, Sarah doesn't have to imagine it because she knows me.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, just imagine you're standing there with someone, you're just looking around quietly, and then they just start screaming at the top of their lungs. They don't even tell you what they're doing. Like, hey, could you just give me some? I know you're testing whether the neighbours can hear, and they've switched their lights on across the road, so I guess they would have heard if she screamed. But do tell me why you didn't even bother to tell Morgan.
Yeah, no, come on.
So Morgan just jumps out of his skin.
Yeah, he was so confused, bless him. And he's like, what the hell are you doing?
Oh, Morgan.
And then Gideon asks, why no one heard them scream? Maybe they didn't scream. Maybe they did. Back in the office, Gideon gives his thoughts on the unsub. They had control over the family and may have separated each family member. They would have told the mother that if she screams, he'll kill the children, threatening to kill the mother if the children cry, and he must have found a way of restraining them without leaving marks. The medical examiner estimated that Chris died last, based on lividity of the body. So it means he would have had to watch the whole event of his family being killed one by one. The team suggests that the unsub is someone who knew both families and knew that they were going on vacation, which would have given him ample time to do what he intended to do. Gideon suggests looking at travel agents, relatives, work colleagues, contract workers, maybe the children's tutors. At this point, Hotch interrupts via speakerphone and says he has info on the Crawford's finances thanks to Garcia. Alison spent more than Chris could afford, and they were in major debt. Chris had written checks for several visits to a therapist. Alison had 2 phone accounts, but one was billed to a separate address in Southeast Washington, D.C. In the next scene, Hotch and Morgan kick down a door with the guns drawn, announcing FBI. The rest of the team then follow him inside. Cartoons playing on the TV as the team searches the residence. A child's painting is hung on the wall. Gideon retrieves it and points out that the image is a colonial house, and also depicted are 2 children holding hands of the parents and a large dog to the side of them. And the picture is signed by Emily. Reed is reminded that Eric wanted to know what was on the paper that his son was holding. Gideon tells him simply, his son's blood.
Also, they're like, hey, this house looks like a crap place. Like, oh my god. And they're making a really big fuss about it. And I'm like, I don't think the house is that bad. I think we just haven't turned the light on, guys. Yeah. Like, houses do tend to look more dingy in very dim light.
So the team hears clattering from the next room. Hotch and Morgan go to investigate, and Morgan kicks the door open to find a large black dog barking, and understandably falls to the floor. Somebody's heard whistling, and the dog goes running towards the sound. Team turn around and warn the person to freeze. The camera pans round also to reveal a tall, well-built, shadowy male who lets the dog outside. In the next scene, the man is revealed to be a grey-haired, bearded man who seems very scared. He's revealed to be Frank Fielding, the older brother of Alison Crawford. Frank claims the painting is his. Gideon points out whoever drew it was left-handed. Morgan randomly throws something across the room at Frank, who catches it with his right hand. He didn't paint it. They ask Frank how he got the painting. Gideon mentions that Frank is manic depressive, bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
And asks why he forgot to take his meds. Frank says they make him feel wrong. Morgan mentions wrong enough to kill the Crawfords.
These people, they are so horrible to this guy. And the thing is that they haven't even been like, I mean, I guess they did it off screen, but they haven't been like, hey, you're the brother of this woman, she's died, and your nephew and niece have died. And it's like completely like giving him the third degree. They didn't even like give him a chance to provide an alibi or anything.
Yeah.
They're just basically like, hey, you're weird. Did you kill your sister? Guys, sorry, do you not look up the next of kin when people die?
I know, yeah. Because surely he must have heard like before then.
Well,
that wasn't him finding out that his sister had died.
Well, I think it might have been, like, because they are not saying it like he knows. They're saying it like a bit like,
yeah,
we're gonna. They're just like I feel that they jumped into accusing him.
Yeah.
And my big problem with that is that they haven't even just been like, hey, by the way, your sister's dead, to see how he reacts. They're just literally like, did you kill your sister?
Frank says that he did a bad thing. Alison had told him not to go to their house, but he did. He swears that he would never hurt her. And he's adamant that it was Chris who killed them and himself. Gideon asks him what the bad thing was that he did. Frank says that the rule was that he was never supposed to go to the house. Alison had told him that if Chris ever saw him, he would never be allowed to see his sister again. Frank says he was going to lock me up in the loony bin. He never liked me. Frank explains that despite being told not to go to the house, he really wanted to see Alison, that's why he went. As he says, seeing Alison made everything better. He also mentioned that one of the main reasons why he went was because Chris and Alison had cut his phone off. I reckon it was more Chris and Alison.
Yeah.
Elle says that there's no way that Frank got in without a key, and suspects that because Chris doesn't like him, it's unlikely he would have been given one in the first place. Gideon asks Frank again what he did at the house. Frank explains that it was dark and cold, and he went along the side of the house to look through a window. His breath steamed up the glass, so he wiped it clean and saw the family sitting down for dinner. He saw the kids, and Sam was upset. Gideon asks if he saw Alison. Frank says she was saying grace over the table, but then looked up and saw him at the window and mouthed what he assumed was, get the hell out. So he just left. Gideon asks if Chris saw him. Frank says that Chris wasn't there, but there was somebody else at the table, a tiny person with red hair. The team thinks it possibly the unsub. Frank gets upset and starts hitting himself, and the team tries to calm him down. So, in the next scene, Morgan points to photos on a board and says that both families had dogs and chip-activated dog doors. Elle mentions that Frank had said that the person he saw was small. Morgan suggests that they'd have to be no bigger than 5'4" in order to get through the dog door. Gideon iterates a quote, "When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." In reference to Gideon's quote, Morgan points out that Sherlock Holmes is a fictional character, but the unsub isn't. He reckons at this stage the unsub has already found another family to target. The scene cuts to a mum walking into a bedroom holding a baby, with an older daughter and the dad following closer behind. The family are putting the baby to sleep in his crib, and the mum alludes to a vacation that they are going on the following day, as she says, "We've got a long day tomorrow." The mum then ushers the daughter and the dad out of the room as she kisses the baby goodnight. The dad and daughter walk past a line of suitcases on the landing as they leave. The mum leaves the nursery and the camera focuses on the baby who is still awake. The closet door slides open and a shadowy figure emerges, putting a pacifier, or dummy in the case of UK people, in the baby's mouth. That was very creepy.
Like, I'm always like, is there someone in the wardrobe?
And then you just see this hand with a dummy, like,
Yeah, sometimes I see shadows in my room if I've like hung up my dressing gown or
oh, that's
something
the best
on my
one.
wardrobe.
And you think there's like a figure
And
on
I'm like, oh my God, there's someone going to kill me.
you.
And I like reach out, hit the light on, and it's always just, my
Yeah.
dressing gown with stars all over it. And I'm like, oh, that's
That's
less
the reason why
scary.
I've stopped hanging clothes up on my door. Terrified. I just leave bags
Yeah.
on. At least then I know the bag's not going to kill me. They might, but you never know.
One day I feel that my stuff will kill me
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, what if I need that for something? And then I keep it and I'm like, I think this might be like a bit hoarderish. Maybe I should definitely
Yeah.
scale things down. But anyway,
Emma Murphy, Death by Hoarding.
exactly. That's what you can put on my tombstone, Sarah.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the episode week. Back at HQ, Morgan is coming off the phone with someone. Elle says Gideon has been looking at photos on the board all morning. Morgan says he hopes Gideon can see a connection because he's been talking to doctors, lawyers, travel agents, tutors, contract workers, etc., but so far he hasn't found any leads. Elle questions why the families were targeted. Hotch says that in order to know that, they need to know how. The team are trying to work out a profile for the unsub. Morgan says that organised killers are often skilled workers with above average intelligence, high birth status, and they're mostly male. In the workplace, the unsub is socially confident. With women, he's sexually competent. Every offence is pre-planned.
And that's what you want, competent.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was just going through my head. I couldn't let you finish. I was like, no, I must say this.
No, I gotta get in. I gotta get in. Targeting his victims is almost as pleasurable as the actual kill. Meticulous and compulsive, everything has to have its proper place. Guys like this do exhaustive amounts of research on their victims. They watch their every move, down to the last detail. Everything has to be written down ever so neatly in a book or a journal. For example, what time the kids get home from school, what time the dad will be home, what time's playtime, supper time, bedtime, etc. As Morgan says, plan the work the plan. This is the way that the unsub maintains control and personalizes his targets. Morgan suggests that the workplace is likely the connection between the families. Gideon then appears holding up two paintings done by Emily. One done in black paint, the other more colourful. Both paintings depict the Crawford's house. He believes that Emily was coerced to paint the one in black. So the image appears to be from the killer's point of view, like where he stood to watch the family. Hotch believes that both of the husband's wedding rings are the unsub's trophies, as neither men were wearing their rings when their bodies were found. He also suggests that the unsub targets families because he lost his own and this is the way he gets to play daddy for a few days. Morgan says that the unsub knows he can do anything he wants, safe in the knowledge that no one will come looking for the family as they're supposed to be on vacation. Gideon thinks that the unsub may have worn Chris's clothes to complete the fantasy, so suggests to get forensics to check the inside of his clothing for potential DNA. Elle asks why the unsub would then kill the family. Gideon says because the fantasy can't last. Morgan looks over reports. He notes Chris worked for the IRS, while Reese Miller was a secretary at the GAO. Both were government employees. Gideon and Morgan go to speak to Chris's co-workers. One guy mentions that Chris had briefly talked about marriage counselling. They search through his office, finding a child's painting with a family around the table. Flash cuts to photos of the family's bodies at the crime scene. Gideon has a thought. Family therapists use children's paintings to assess familial relationships. Hotch and Elle visit Reese's co-workers. Mrs. Riley tells them that Reese used to take off early every Thursday to go see a therapist when she was still with Eric. Scene then cuts to Garcia and Reed at headquarters. Garcia says, "We've got to stop meeting like this, Reed. People will talk, but then talk is cheap. Reed says, not when you're talking to a therapist. They're expensive.
Yes, they are.
Reed points out that the Crawfords had made 12 weekly payments to the Applewood Family Centre. He asks about pharmaceuticals as apparently no one gets therapy these days without a healthy dose of medication. Garcia searches on her computer. The medication requires reimbursement from the HMO for government employees. So she hacks into the government's HMO database. Reed asks her, is that legal? Garcia, of course not. We'll both go to prison and you'll become someone's bitch. Reed looking very confused, really.
He doesn't look upset by it, though.
No, he's just very questioning. He's just like, what? And Garcia managed to locate the information. Reese Miller was prescribed diazepam, prescribed by a Dr. R. Howard at the Applewood Family Centre. Garcia is then shocked when she looks at a photo of the doctor in question. And it's not the he she was expecting, but a woman, Dr. Rachel Howard. The scene then jumps to inside a house. A person in black is wearing white gloves and is seen setting up art supplies for a young girl. Black paint, white paper. The person then strokes the child's head as the scene is fast-forwarded while the child paints the house.
No, creepy as hell.
Just a head thing, it was like, shivers.
Hate this. Hate everything about this.
The next scene is at a family centre. A young blonde girl is colouring a picture. Dr. Howard compliments her and she smiles brightly. Hotch, Morgan and Gideon then enter the room and Hotch introduces them as FBI agents. Dr. Howard hurries the girl out of the room with her mum. Gideon introduces himself and the doctor says that they both deal with the dysfunctional, but her end results aren't as unpleasant as his. The team bring up the Crawford and Miller families, confirming that she knew about them. Morgan tells her to take a seat and she questions why. Now at this point, presumably she's told about the murders off screen because you don't see that bit on screen. In the next scene, it's in her office and Morgan tells her that they'll have to check her alibi. She replies, dig all you want. I have 4 teenagers. If I had any time to myself, it wouldn't be spent killing my clients.
Which is just a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think I might honestly start using that. If I had any time to myself, I wouldn't be killing people.
No. I'd be having a nap. I'd be doing other stuff. I'd be editing this podcast.
Yes, I think that that will take us to the end of time.
Yeah.
It would just be like, look, I have to edit a podcast where parts of the podcast are constantly going missing for some reason. If I had any time to myself, I wouldn't be killing people.
No. So Dr. Howard says that she assessed both families' cases and points out the office deals with hundreds of families, military, cops, lawyers, congressmen, feds. She only met the families once before she handed their cases off to other therapists. Hotch asks her, but you prescribe medication for them. Dr. Howard says, but I'm the only medical doctor here. Gideon asks who she handed over the cases to. She can't remember, so she goes to check her files. Morgan questions why she doesn't use a computer. Dr. Howard says, not all of us have embraced the technical revolution. I keep everything filed. It makes me feel more in control. And please do not read into that. She locates the Crawford's file. Turns out Carl Arnold dealt with her case. Hotch asks about the Millers, but gets no response from her as Gideon asks to speak to him. Dr. Howard says they can't. He works a 440, which is 4 10-hour days. He was off that day, but he was due in the following morning. The team asks for his address, and Gideon requests to see his office. Morgan tries to call Carl's cell, but he goes straight to voicemail. Dr. Howard insists that Carl is a good man, and Morgan responds, that's what everybody says until they find a body in the basement.
That was a strong thing to say, Morgan.
I know, that was like...
Like, that was a real kick in the head, wasn't it?
The team arrives at Carl's office to find the door is locked. Dr. Howard offers to go and get the security and let them in. Morgan decides they don't have time for that and proceeds to kick the door in. They. They switch the lights on and find the walls adorned with children's paintings depicting hoses. The team grow increasingly concerned, and the camera jumps quickly from picture to picture. Gideon asks, where is he now? Dr. Howard says, well, if he's not at home, maybe he's gone to see his family. It's revealed that he was married and he has 2 children, Carl Jr. and Sara. Gideon asks how long ago the marriage collapsed. Dr. Howard says 5 years ago. At the time, Carl took it hard. He took time off work, he couldn't concentrate, and started drinking. Dr. Howard is dumbfounded. She says that she would have seen if something was wrong. Gideon asks her where the wife and kids now live. Apparently, they moved to Idaho. Morgan finds that Carl's home was raided by the police, but he was not there. The scene jumps to a blonde woman in a house doing laundry. Her children scare her with Halloween masks. They are revealed as Carl's family, ex-wife Faye, and the kids, Carl Jr. and Sara. Faye receives a phone call from Hotch asking if she knows where her ex-husband is. Faye replies, as long as he's nowhere near me, I don't give a damn. Hotch asks when she last saw him. She said it's been over 2 years, but he did call her about an hour ago. And in a quote from her, he babbled on about how precious family is. And he just wanted to talk to the kids. Told her he'd met a little girl who reminded him of his daughter. When asked how he seemed, Faye said, angry, controlling, and manic, which apparently is usual for him. She doesn't know where he is, but did recall hearing kids in the background on the call. And someone was crying before he rushed to hang up. Hotch tells the team what Faye told him. Gideon says he's already in another family's house. And the screen fades to black. In the next scene, it opens on a row of dolls on a cabinet. The team are going through files at the family centre. Gideon holds a photo of Carl and his family and notes that just like the Crawford and Miller families, he has a boy and a girl. The next target family will be the same. Dr. Howard questions why she didn't see this coming. Gideon asks if Carl has a journal. Dr. Howard confirms that he writes everything down and takes a journal everywhere. Gideon reckons that the trophies that the unsub has been collecting are either hidden in his house or his office, and they'll be needed as evidence in case Carl doesn't confess. In their search for other families on Carl's books, had both son and daughter. Hotch finds the Harris family. Morgan has found others, the Boyds and the Duncans. Horrified, Dr. Howard says that the Duncans' case is hers, not his. They have a baby boy and an 8-year-old daughter named Jackie. And the family, it appears to be the family that was shown in the nursery scene earlier. Gideon holds up a painting, questioning if it's Jackie's. Sobbing, Dr. Howard says that Carl took it from her office. Morgan asks if the family were planning a trip. Dr. Howard confirms, saying to the Adirondacks. Gideon and Morgan rush out of the room, instructing Hotch to tear up the room. Hotch calls for backup. In the next scene, Gideon, Morgan, and the SWAT team are located outside the Duncan's house. Thermal camera shows that there are people inside the house sat around the table. The SWAT guy confirms that there are 3 adults and 2 kids at the dining room table. He instructs his men to surround the house to gain entry. Upon entry, the mother screams that the unsub has her baby as she grabs hold of her daughter. The father is bound and gagged in the corner of the room. The SWAT guy asks if the unsub is alone. The mother confirms he is. Gideon asks where the basement access is, and she tells him it's under the stairs. He instructs other officers to get the family out of the house while he goes to rescue the baby. Morgan and Gideon enter the basement trying to locate Carl. He's found hiding in a corner holding the baby. Gideon tries to get him to give up the baby, promising to put his gun away. He inches forward with his arms outstretched. With a menacing look, Carl tosses the baby into the air, but thankfully Gideon catches him. Carl then brandishes a knife and tries to attack Morgan. They jostle each other around until Morgan manages to disarm him and pin him up against the wall. Morgan says to him, "You move, I will break your neck." The baby is wailing as Gideon tries to soothe him. And I don't know about you, the bit where he threw the baby, my heart was in my mouth.
Absolutely. It was just like, oh my God.
I was like, please catch it.
I have nothing like the hand-eye coordination that would be needed to catch a baby that someone had thrown at me.
Yeah, I have a case of dropsies, so I drop everything.
I would have to, my best case solution would be me running, trying to catch the baby in midair, but at least trying to like me fall on the floor so I cushion the baby's fall. Like that's the best case scenario. I'm not catching a baby in midair.
Back at BAU headquarters, Morgan and Gideon exit an elevator with Carl now apprehended and chained. Carl smiles at a woman in the corridor as he's dragged towards the interview room. Gideon asks if he can be forensically tied to the other crimes. Sadly, it's negative on DNA. Gideon concludes that they'll need a confession. JJ asks him, "Can you get one?" Gideon, "Did you do what I asked?" JJ, "Yeah." Gideon says, "Then maybe." Gideon is interviewing Carl. There's a board of photos of the murdered families behind Gideon, which Carl focuses on during the interview. As Gideon talks about the Crawford kids, Carl asks for a glass of water and requests to have his shackles removed. Gordon tells him no, the shackles can stay on. Gideon tells Carl that they have his journals and that they know how he stalked the families. Carl said it's his job to get to know the families and write everything down. Carl says, "I can't help them solve their problems without knowing their background. I make home visits, sometimes without their knowledge because people lie." And I don't know about you, but that was very reminiscent of Dr. House in that bit.
It is, but at least Dr. House is channeling his personality problems into actually finding out what is physically wrong with someone so they can get treatment.
Right. This guy's just.
There might be a reason why people are lying to Carl Arnold. I would also tell him a lie every single time. I'd be like, "Oh no, I'm going to be at my brother's tonight. Do not come anywhere near me, you fucking creep." Also, I just wanted to say, I didn't get a chance to say it earlier, but the thing where they were like, "Oh, well, no one knew they were missing for a few days because they were on holiday." Thankfully, and this is the only thankfully bit I'll ever say about this, but that wouldn't happen with my family because even when they know you're on holiday, they're still like contacting you about things that could wait until you get back. Yeah. Like it's not like they're just sending like "Hey, how are you?" text. They're like, "Oh, hey, I need the bank details for this." And it's like, "No, you don't. I'm back in a week. Goodbye."
Bye.
So they would raise the alarm.
Yeah. Gideon shows Carl photos of the families. Carl says that Eric Miller was an awful husband and father, and that Alison Crawford hemorrhaged money that her husband didn't have. Gideon then shows him the photo of his family, Carl, Faye, and the children. Gideon points out that while they look like an average American family, the body language tells otherwise. Gideon says the woman and children are distant from the man. Their smiles are stiff, their eyes are frightened. Every hair is in place, wearing their Sunday best, their own private hell being memorialized on film. Carl seems anxious and uncomfortable, and he shouts at Gideon, telling him that the photos are mixed up. The crime scene photos of the bodies of the young boys in each family are in the wrong set. Gideon confirms, but asks how Carl knew that. Carl then realizes that he's just implicated his own involvement.
I can't help but think all of these people are dumb.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, yeah, no, I can get away with murder because I've got such a well-organized thing." And it's like, well, you just basically confessed by saying that you knew the drawings were in the photos were in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're not intelligent. You're actually just really dumb and a really evil person. Yeah. But you think you're better than other people. You think you know things. I really hate it when people are like, "Oh, serial killers are so smart. Look at the Zodiac sending all those cryptic messages to the paper." I think he was just an asshole.
Yeah. Carl then confesses. He explains how he stalked the families for several days, always at night time. He would keep the family members separated until the last night at what he called the Last Supper. He then brought them down one by one to the basement. The youngest first, the dad last. Morgan asks him why. Carl says, so he could see what happens to families when the head of the household isn't strong. Wives wither, children perish. But me, I'm an excellent father. Throughout this scene, JJ and Gideon are seen putting evidence and files into boxes. Morgan looks towards Gideon. Gideon looks towards Carl with a solemn look, closes the box and exits the room. Back at Carl's office, Hotch has found a false wall. He removes a panel to find a number of items stashed in there, including a blue box and 4 files with the names of different families on them. The Ness family, the Crawford family, the Linford family, and the Miller family. Hotch grabs the blue box and opens it, looking forlorn. Just want to point out, sir, where are your gloves?
Yes.
Surely this is evidence, but you're kind of contaminating it.
I know. Like, effectively, Hotch could be a massive serial killer.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, no, my fingerprints are only on that evidence because I found it. What are you doing? It's like Jessica Fletcher level of investigation. Ooh.
He obviously hasn't seen as many crime shows as we have. So. Naughty Hotch. In the final scene, the team are all sat around a table at HQ. Everyone looks sad as Gideon empties the box onto the table. And 8 wedding rings fall out. And this indicates that there were more families who were victims.
But also, I don't think that's the way to treat evidence either. Like, just like pour it out onto the table.
Oh, yeah, it's
like they're toys that your child has to put away properly. Like, okay, well, here's all the toys you used today. Where do they go? You just tip it out onto the table. Just like open it carefully and show the team 1, 2, 3. I know that wouldn't be as dramatic for the TV show, but I am like, that is evidence and does eventually need to be given back to the remaining family.
But surely they'd have to like swab each one for DNA to find out what ring belongs to who. So
I mean, possibly that's already been done, but it's not a way that I'm comfortable with the police treating evidence or things that have to be returned to the families of victims. Like, what are they going to do if one of them rolls underneath a cabinet and then, you've got Reed on the floor putting his arm underneath going, I can't feel it.
Oh, yeah.
What do you then?
Anyway, so that's the episode recap for this week.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
You're welcome.
And we'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Looking for a Man in His 30s, a Criminal Minds podcast. We've done the episode recap. Thank you, Sarah. So now we are going on to the episode discussion. So there are some interesting points here that Sarah luckily looked up for me.
Yes.
So do you want to read them out, Sam?
I shall. So this episode we have no jet scenes. I think the cases are like local-ish.
Yeah.
I had to Google map this one because I wasn't sure where Quantico was in relation to Maryland.
No.
Maryland's literally across the river. So
DC and Maryland are literally across the river.
So there was no plane needed this time.
We love people doing things more sustainably, not like getting on a private jet for a 13-minute flight.
No. Although, fun fact, did you know that in I think it's the Shetland Isles, the shortest flight is 2 minutes.
Yeah, I did know that.
Like one island to the other.
Yeah. No, I knew that. I also thought it was ridiculous. If you fly on that, apparently, you get like a little certificate because it's the shortest flight in the world. Oh. And I'm like, at that point, what is the point in getting on a flight? Yeah. Like, just get on a boat, dude.
So in this week, there's no closing bookend quote. Although halfway through, Gideon does utter a quote on camera, like halfway through. The Sherlock Holmes reference. Yeah,
they seem to juggle it about in the first season to be like, do we need to? Should it be just Gideon? Should we just inject one halfway through? But yeah, we like the opening and closing bookend quotes. Yeah. We like those.
And despite, as we use our intro to the episode recap, the wheels up, There's still no wheels up.
Yeah,
You lied to me. There is no wheels up.
I did. I said it was a very common thing.
And I've
They
yet
do
to
that
hear
in
it.
most episodes. But you know, if there's no jet, then there's no wheels up.
Maybe for this episode they could have said tires on. Oh.
Well, if it makes you feel better, Sarah, from now on, if we have a scene where they're not getting on a flight because it's, you know, in Maryland or in Virginia, you can say tires up.
Yeah.
I won't be saying it. I'll just go, mm-hmm. Anyway, start the episode recap. Yeah, fucking whatever. So now we have some notable guest stars, and Sarah actually looked up both of these, but I did have Tony Todd because I did look at him and I was like, I know him from somewhere. And it was only from, well, actually, I think I knew him from two things. So shall I go first with Tony Todd? Sorry.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, so he was the person, he was the actor that played Eric Miller, the ex-husband of Reese Miller. And what I know him from is The Candyman. He was in the Candyman films, and I feel like I've watched them at least a few times. So that was where I really knew him from. But Sarah also found out that he was the funeral director in the Final Destination films that we watched.
That's where I knew him from.
Yeah. And he also was several characters in the Star Trek universe, which your mum knows him from.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But he sadly passed away in 2024. But yeah, he was a really good actor.
Yeah.
And he was also in some Marvel things. But I don't know enough about Marvel to tell you anything about them.
And the other notable guest star we had was Abraham Ben-Ruby. Now, he plays Frank Fielding, who is Alison Crawford's brother. And the second I saw him, I knew him straight away, because his most notable role was as the desk clerk Jerry Markovich in ER, which I loved watching as a kid with my mum.
I don't think I've ever seen an episode of ER.
It was my childhood.
Is it on a streaming service? Can I watch it?
It might be.
I'll look it up later.
I just used to watch it on telly with my mum in like the mid-90s.
Now, Sarah, we are now moving on to our baby girl / pretty boy of the episode. For anyone that doesn't know, that's our episode MVP, and we use baby girl or pretty boy because this is what Morgan calls Garcia and Reed. So, but neither of us have put in an episode MVP, so this might be the first time we're actually deciding live as we go through the podcast. So let's go through the main cast first. So really feel that like Hotch or Elle really stood out in this.
Yeah, not this week.
Don't think Gideon did.
No.
And although I liked Reed and Garcia's little moment, I don't think it's either of them really. I did like seeing Morgan kick the door down. I do enjoy those moments. But if I'm honest, I think that it might not be a member of the main cast that I'm giving it to.
No.
What do you think?
I was a bit torn.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did have the Rachel Howard.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because she just had that iconic thing like,
yeah,
I have 4 teenagers. I wouldn't kill my patients if I got any free time. You know, and there were also a couple more things that I noted that she'd said, and I was like, damn, she's funny. Yeah. So, do you think it should be her, Rachel Howard? Or, I mean, Jack definitely didn't have a lot to do, the baby, in the episode.
No, but he was so adorable.
He was so adorable, but also like all he did was be on screen for like 10 seconds. And yeah, you didn't get to hear a lot from Haley Hotchner, which is Hotch's wife. So I'm thinking
weirdly enough, though, my other idea
Yeah.
was not so much for the character, more for the acting of the actor,
Mm.
Eric Miller.
Yeah.
That was my
Yeah, actually.
thinking.
Yeah, we'll specify that it's definitely the actor
Yeah,
and not the character for
yeah,
this. But I'm happy to give it to Eric Miller.
yeah. Just for the fact that he's Tony Todd and he's a legend.
Yeah. He's made a pretty big impact on our lives being in the Final Destination films.
Yep,
Because me and you used to watch those all the time.
we really did.
So we're going to take a really quick break and we will be back with the True Crime Recap. Hi, and welcome back to Looking for a Man in His 30s, a Criminal Minds podcast.
And we're up to the true crime recap. So, Emma, it's time to deliver the profile.
Okay, so the unsolved Carl Arnold, when I looked it up on Criminal Minds Wiki, it said that he was sort of a combination of 4 serial killers, all of which are mentioned later in the show. Like, I think they serve as the inspiration later on as well. So I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to do one guy who I felt made the most sense. So the serial killers that they believed he was modeled after were Tommy Lynn Sells, Robert Napper, Dennis Rader, who you might know as BTK, and Anatoly Onoprienko. I sighed because, like, stop giving these guys names. It makes them a sort of anti-hero, and it's kind of creepy. All of the murderers are the inspiration behind other episodes, and some of the connections for a few of them were a bit of a reach for me. So I'm going to be talking about Anatoly Onoprienko because he's the only one that fitted in with the family annihilator type. So he was a serial killer who killed 52 victims between 1989 and 1996 in Ukraine. He was nicknamed the Terminator or the Beast of Ukraine. Please stop giving these guys nicknames. It just lionizes them in the imaginations of people who idealize serial killers.
And the nicknames sound all cutesy as well, and it's just not.
Yeah, like, oh, the Beast of Ukraine. You know, it makes it sound like they're, you know, the Terminator is a freaking movie icon, and he's the hero in that movie.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, he was born in 1959 to his father Yuri and an unnamed woman. It says unnamed, and I thought, oh well, why is that not on a birth certificate? And this woman didn't die until Anatoly Onoprienko was 4. So why don't you have a record of her name? Anyway, doesn't matter about that. His father put him in an orphanage, but kept the older brother Valentin. I was watching a documentary about it, and Onoprienko claimed that his father and brother both agreed that he should be taken to the orphanage, and his grandmother reluctantly took him there. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Who waits until they've got, you know, a 4-year-old or, you know, perhaps by this time 5-year-old, and it's like, oh, I can't cope. Let me take one of my kids to an orphanage. Like, why isn't there a relative that can help? Yeah. This grandmother, perhaps, because she stayed with him in the orphanage to help him adjust and visited him regularly, bringing care packages. Maybe you should actually just help your son raise 2 kids, like, because this hasn't gone well. Like, obviously back in the 60s, social care and children's homes and stuff like that was very, very different, especially in a country that was at that time part of the USSR. So Onoprienko said this is why he killed parents, like killing his own parents, because they had, well, the mother died and the father abandoned him. And then he only killed the children so they wouldn't have to grow up as orphans. And coldest take in the world here, don't kill their parents then. Like, I know you had a messed up start, but I do think there was something you could have done that wasn't murdering people. So he would target isolated houses, create a commotion to get the attention of those inside. So the father would come out, see what the noise is, and Onoprienko would shoot him. So starting with the strongest threat, just like Morgan said, hey, that's the logical thing to do, before moving on to kill the mother and the children in the family. He would also kill any witnesses, like anyone who was, perhaps walking their dog past the house, and would sometimes burn the houses as a forensic countermeasure.
Shit timing if you would take your dog out for a while, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh shit! Oh fuck!
Always the dog walkers. That's going to be the light point. Hang on to this. This is going to be the light point.
I'll hold on to my seat.
So he began his criminal activities in the 80s, but because of the political situation at the time, the collapse of the USSR, it meant that the kind of survival-related crime, like robbery, like if you're stealing food or if you're stealing money because you need to buy food, there was a lot of it and the police couldn't cope. And so because of that, he was not caught until way after he turned violent. Now, there are some discrepancies between the sources that I looked at, which were the Criminal Minds Wiki, Wikipedia, a documentary that I saw on Dailymotion, and a Guardian article. So, the documentary says the first victim was his landlady, who had caught him trying to burgle her house, and then he moved on to couples who he shot in their cars. And the Criminal Minds Wiki has the couples in cars as his first crime, while Wikipedia mentions a family of 10, 2 parents, 8 adults, who are not mentioned in either other source, nowhere down the list. And I was like, okay. So I went with the documentary. After the landlady, he worked with a friend called Sergei Ragoza to burgle houses. And in June 1989, the pair spotted a car on the road and decided to, because they were driving back from Russia, and so they decided to rob the couple in the car at gunpoint. This was Oleg and Ludmila Melanik. They were both 31. So Ragoza said, like, the plan was just to hold the gun up and then get their money, get their jewelry. But Onoprienko shot them both and set fire to the car. He then threatened to kill Ragoza's family if Ragoza went to the police. In July of 1989, he shot Victor and Anna Vasilyuk in their car and burnt the vehicle. In August, Onoprienko shot the Podolak family in their car, including Yevgeny, who was the father, his 3 sisters-in-law, Valentina, Paula, and Lena, along with Yevgeny's 11-year-old son, Sasha. It turns out that the police did not think that all of these incidences of people being shot in their car and then their cars being set on fire, the police didn't think this was the work of one person. So they just thought these were isolated incidents. There was no need to track it. And it might have to do with a bit of the culture of the USSR at the time, where they thought serial killers were sort of a Western thing, like serial killers were in America and Britain, but certainly not there. If they had caught him at that point, there would be far less bodies. This is a really insane part to me that made me go, sorry, what? So there's a break in the crime spree until 1995, because Onoprienko spent the early 90s traveling across Austria, Greece, Hungary, Sweden, and Yugoslavia without any travel documents. This was in a Guardian article I read. And if you're wondering, how was he able to do this? So the fuck am I? Because I looked it up. Austria, Greece, Hungary, and Sweden. Oh, yeah, I might not have mentioned Sweden before, he was there as well. Anyway, Austria, Greece, Hungary, and Sweden are part of the Schengen Agreement, which allows free movement between those states. But Yugoslavia and Ukraine are not on that list. So I'm not clear, and I'm also not clear what the rules were between 1985 when the agreement was signed and in 1995, when it became effective, did some states that had agreed to it or signed on allow free movement? Did Yugoslavia and Ukraine not bother doing border checks? This is unclear, at least from my cursory internet search. If anyone has a better working knowledge of the Schengen Agreement and how it was enforced in the early 90s, please let me know. The Guardian goes on to explain that the police in those countries were searching their unsolved crimes to see if there was anything that matched the MO. But given that no victims were linked to him as of the Guardian article, and because the Guardian article was at the time, it was like 97, and no murders in other countries were linked to him later, I'm going to guess that the police did not have enough evidence to charge him, because as we know, people who, serial killers are not able to just stop.
Yeah.
Like, they either go to prison or they've left the country for and then the murders are elsewhere. So in 1995, Onoprienko is back in Ukraine, and on October 5th, he shot Galina Brashchenko and stabbed to death Alexander Svetlotsky before burning their car. Later in October, he shot 70-year-old Maria Poroshuk and set fire to her apartment. And then on December 24th, he broke into the house of the Zaichenko family. He shot the father Nikolai twice and stabbed mother Julia 5 times. He also removed some of their fingers post-mortem. You'll find out why in a minute. Well, it wasn't said explicitly when they were talking about the Zaichenko family, but I do believe that it's probably the same thing as mentioned later on. He then stabbed and strangled their 2 children, 3-year-old Boris and 3-month-old Oleg. On January 2nd, he broke into the Krychkov family house and shot Peter, Maria, and her 2 sisters, Lesa and Miroslava, before burning the house. He also killed a witness, Mikhail Malinovsky, and he removed the wife's finger to take her wedding ring, which he used to propose to his girlfriend hours later.
What?
Yeah, so that's a link to the episode, the taking of the wedding rings. He also gave other items that he'd stolen from the families, like clothes, a tape deck, as gifts for his fiancée and her 2 children from a previous marriage. Over the course of January 5th and 6th, he shot Sergei Odinskov and Tamara Dolinin. He engaged in necrophilia with her corpse. Yeah, sorry about that. And he put both of their bodies in Sergei's car trunk. Over those 2 days, he also killed 5 more people, some of whom were witnesses to the first murder. So he killed Alexander Rybalko, Sergei Gamash, Viktor Kaziev, Nadiza Kochagina, and Anatoly Savitsky. Savitsky was also put in the car trunk, and all 3 people who were in the car trunk, that's Sergei, Tamara, and Anatoly, were also burned post-mortem. On January 17th, he broke into the Pilat family house and shot the entire family. That's Vladimir and Olga Pilat, their son Oleg, his wife Lesya, and their 6-year-old son Vladimir Jr. He set the house on fire and killed 2 witnesses, Galina Konzela and Stephen Zaharko. On January 30th, he shot Svetlana Morosina and her 2 sons, Boris and Denis. They were all shot, but 6-year-old Denis was also attacked with a shovel. There was also, I think he might have been like a friend of the family who just came over to be like, hi, just dropping in. So he had come over perhaps after the murders, and he was also bludgeoned to death. It wasn't clear whether he was there at the time or if he'd come after. On February 19th, he killed the Dubček family, shooting father Anatoly. He attacked the mother, Julia, and the 9-year-old Victoria with a hammer. He also raped Julia. On February 26th, he shot Victor Gutz, and on February 27th, he killed the Bodnyachuk family, shooting father Sergei and mother Galina. Their daughters, Tatiana, 7, and Valerie, 8, were killed with an axe. He also shot witness Boris Sok and dismembered him afterwards using the axe. On March 22nd, he killed the Novosad family, shooting father Mikhail, mother Galina, and her sister Irina. He stabbed the couple's 10-year-old Ludmila and slashed Mikhail's face, and it's not quite clear exactly what. So he slashed Mikhail's throat, and then he appears to have stabbed the inside of his mouth, like he burned their house afterwards. After his arrest, he claimed that he had heard voices telling him to kill, but he was declared sane by a leading psychiatrist despite having spent time in a psychiatric institution being treated for schizophrenia. I don't know what the truth is. I am very glad he was taken off the streets. Either way, whether or not he was mentally ill, although, you know, I'm not a mental health expert, but I will say that the starting point for this was the robbery of people. Yeah. Like, you started by robbing them, and that indicates to me, in my completely unprofessional opinion, that it's not voices in your head. Because why do your voices in your head tell you to steal from people until someone catches you and then they're like, kill them? Like, it doesn't matter. Again, we're going to completely state here that the overwhelming majority of people with mental health problems pose no threat to others. They are much more likely to be the victims of violence than the perpetrator. So we really need to destigmatize mental health, even the kind of the quote-unquote scary disorders like schizophrenia and psychopathy. So Onoprienko was sentenced to death in April 1999, but Ukraine entered the Council of Europe later that year, so it was commuted to life in prison. To be honest, I'm against the death penalty. I don't think it serves as a deterrent. It costs a lot more than keeping someone in prison for life. And if I'm honest, I think that a better punishment is actually keeping people locked up for their lives. If, you know, this guy was a horrific murderer, there's no way I'm going like, oh, maybe you release him. Like, he shouldn't have parole, but he should have to, you know, be in prison for the rest of his life and kind of think about what he did. I think that's a better punishment. He died in prison in 2013. And that is the end of that, thankfully. So, Sarah, we are now on to what would Penelope Garcia do, which is where the section of the podcast where we link people with charities or petitions or something that has been raised in the episode that we want to focus on to help people. We've chosen domestic violence because that was the experience of the Miller family, what happened to the unsubbed Carl Arnold as a child, and what Arnold did to his family by controlling them.
So domestic violence is a major issue across the world, and it's largely a hidden crime, which often sadly goes unreported. It does not discriminate age, gender, ethnicity. It can affect anyone at any time and can involve physical, sexual, psychological, or even emotional abuse. Help is out there for those that are affected, and you don't need to face it alone. So, in the UK, Women's Aid has a number of online resources. They have a survivor's handbook, which has advice on how to identify abuse, how to leave an abusive relationship, how to report the abuse to authorities, and if you wish to do so. And plus, they offer ongoing support to help you rebuild your life. They also have a forum where you can interact with the community of survivors who understand what you're going through and can identify with stuff you're struggling with and help you to move on and focus on yourself. And they also have an instant messaging service so you can chat with a support worker. And they have a host of phone numbers to call if you wish to speak to somebody on the phone. They have the National Domestic Abuse Helpline, which is 0808 2000 247. They have a men's advice line for male survivors, which is 0808 801 0327. There's a national LGBT plus domestic abuse hotline also, which is 0800 999 5428. And the final helpline is called The Mix, and it's for the young people under 25 years of age. And that phone number is 0808 808 4994.
Thanks, Sarah. And in the US, they have the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They stated that for immediate help, if you feel you're in immediate danger, call 911. But if you'd like help and advice and you're not in immediate danger, you can call them on 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 1-800-799-7233. Or you can text the word START to 88788. They also have a live chat option available at ncadb.org. You can also donate to the coalition there to help provide more money to support survivors. They also, what I wanted to talk about, I think I might bring this up in another episode as well, but they do have specialized services to support Native Americans who have experienced domestic violence or sexual violence. You can reach them at strongheartshelpline.org. And this is important because Native women are actually, they have a higher rate of being victims of sexual violence than the national average. I just wanted to highlight that, but I'm sure I'll highlight it in an episode where we are speaking more about Native Americans as well. Also, if you want to try and find more local grassroots things, so like in your state, rather than a nationwide one, I've actually found if you go to bestlocalcharities.org, so I'll leave the link in the description, but we were able to click on that and then you can select the cause. So I clicked domestic violence and then it brought up phone numbers, resources, etc., for, individual states. So California, Colorado, Texas, etc. So that might help you to get more kind of grassroots support.
And as always, we'll put the phone numbers and any website details in the show notes. And that's all for this week, but come back next week when we'll be talking about Criminal Minds Season 1, Episode 8, Natural Bone Killer.
While you're waiting for the next episode, why not follow us on social media? We're on Instagram at Looking for a Man in His 30s, Tumblr at Looking for a Man in His 30s, or you can email us at lookingforamanhis30s@gmail.com. If you did not hear the last episode, me and Sarah have been having a slight breakdown over Instagram because the handle Looking for a Man in His 30s, they thought we were a porn bot. So the account got deleted and we have not been able to secure that username again. So what we're going to try and do after this podcast is change it so it's Looking for a Man in His 30s podcast. And we'll update you in the next episode. We will have the proper link to our Instagram in the show notes. So thank you very much.
And you can also rate and review us on whatever platform you're using to listen to podcasts. It really helps more than you know.
Until next time.
This case is closed.